December 30th, 1985, a firebomb guts the Margaret Sanger Center in Mount Auburn. A nearby women's center is also set ablaze. Attorney Al Gerhardstein said it was 12 years after Roe v. Wade made abortion legal.
In 1985, there were a number of anti-abortion activists who did believe that violence was an appropriate response to those clinics that were providing women's reproductive health.
2 years later, the temporary Sanger Center was targeted with a pipe bomb that didn't explode. John Brockhoff was accused in all three cases, but a plea deal produced one conviction. Mike Snowden, Hamilton County's Homeland Security and Emergency Management Director, recalls the era.
The abortion clinics, the whole country was dealing with those issues at the time.
June 8, 1980, teenage cousins Darrell Lane and Dante Evans Brown are murdered as they walk along railroad tracks in Bond Hill. Avowed racist Joseph Paul Franklin is convicted of the crimes. Terrorism expert Ed Bridgman remembers the case well.
If you look at Joseph Paul Franklin, he was a random serial killer. His target selection happened to be persons of color.
Those are 4 of the 10 cases cited by the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism in labeling Hamilton County as a hotspot. Overall, 7 involved women's services clinics. Franklin was number 8. A firebombing attempt at the Cincinnati Herald offices was 9th, and damage to Cincinnati gas and electric equipment in Lockland was 10th. The last case was in 2000.
Clearly, your county has a very different footprint than lots of the other places in the country.
Gary Lafree co-authored the report, which used open sources to build an objective terrorism database.
Cincinnati would only qualify if you're looking at 40 years, if you're looking at a very specific slice of activity that our database labels as terrorism.
That slice is people with an ideological motivation based on a single issue. But is calling Hamilton County a hotspot for terrorism fair?
We're trying to lay out the data in the most objective way we can. And whether you think 9 or 10 incidents is a lot or not, you'll have to judge for yourself.
Those acts, even though they're terroristic in nature, aren't what we typically think of as terroristic acts now.
The 9/11 attacks on U.S. soil in 2001 changed that forever, at least in Snowden's opinion.
To say we're a hotspot because of, again, these events that happened that many years ago, it's just not very fair to our region.
One glaring omission in the report is the 2005 bombing of a mosque in Clifton. Karen Dabdood, executive director of CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, says the crime is unsolved, but assumes it was based on religious hatred.
It seems pretty much of a safe assumption, but no matter what the motivation was, it was definitely a terroristic attack.
We haven't had time to totally vet this, but I think we're going to probably add that to our database.
Dabdood grew up in Hamilton County and rejects the report's conclusion.
Cincinnati is not a hot spot for terrorism, not by a long shot.
To keep it that way, $65 million has been spent on Homeland Security since 9/11, not just for Cincinnati and Hamilton County, but for the entire 12-county region.
We now work together, 12-county committee that works together, multiple disciplines, police, fire, health, hospitals, public works. We never worked like that before.
The bottom line, though, is whether we've done enough to prepare for or prevent future attacks. If people hear this designation, hotspot for terrorism, Hamilton County, should they be worried about their public safety?
No, flat out no. Like I said, this report is old data based upon old events that just aren't relevant to today's environment.